The morning of August 15th started like any other Saturday in our suburban Dallas home. The Texas sun was already blazing at 7 a.m., and I could feel the humidity creeping through the windows as I quietly moved around the kitchen, preparing what I thought would be the perfect 7th birthday celebration for my son, Tommy. I had been planning this surprise party for weeks. Blue and red balloons, his favorite colors, were carefully hidden in the garage, along with a custom Batman cake I'd ordered from his favorite bakery downtown. The new bicycle, a shiny red Schwinn with training wheels, was wrapped and waiting in my office closet. Everything had to be perfect. Sarah, my wife of 10 years, had been unusually quiet that morning. She sat at the kitchen island sipping her coffee and staring at her phone with an expression I couldn't quite read. Her usually perfectly styled blonde hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and she wore an old Northwestern University sweatshirt, something she only did when she was stressed. "Hey babe," I said, pouring myself a cup of coffee. "Tommy's still sleeping, right? I want to get everything set up before he wakes up." She looked up at me with eyes that seemed different, cold almost. "Actually, David, we need to talk." The way she said it made my stomach drop. In 10 years of marriage, I'd learned to recognize that tone. It was the same one she used when she told me her father had passed away, or when she'd had to put down her childhood dog. "Can it wait?" I asked, checking my watch. "The party starts at noon and I still need to—" "No, it can't wait." She stood up, her coffee mug shaking slightly in her hands. "Sit down, David." I sat across from her, the granite countertop suddenly feeling like a barrier between us. Outside, I could hear our neighbors, the Johnsons, starting their lawnmower, and somewhere in the distance, a dog was barking. Normal Saturday morning sounds that felt surreal in this moment. Sarah reached into her purse, a designer bag I'd bought her for our anniversary last year, and pulled out a manila envelope, the kind lawyers use. My heart started racing. "Sarah, what is this?" She slid the envelope across the counter. "I'm filing for divorce, David." The words hit me like a physical blow. I stared at the envelope, my name written in neat black ink across the front. "What? Sarah, what are you talking about? It's Tommy's birthday. We can discuss whatever's bothering you later." "There's nothing to discuss." Her voice was steady, practiced, like she'd rehearsed this moment. "I've made my decision. The papers are all ready. I just need you to sign them." I opened the envelope with trembling hands. Legal documents filled with terms I barely understood. Divorce petition, asset division, custody arrangements. The words blurred together as my vision filled with tears. "Sarah, please talk to me. What's going on? Is this about the promotion I didn't get? The hours I've been working? We can fix this." "It's not about your job, David." She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at our backyard where Tommy's swing set sat empty. I'm not happy anymore. I haven't been for a long time. But we can work on it. We can go to counseling, take a vacation, whatever you need." "I don't want to work on it." She turned back to me, and I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before. Not sadness, not regret. Relief. "I want out, David. I want to start over." That's when I heard it, the soft patter of little feet on the hardwood stairs. Tommy was awake. "Daddy? Mommy?" His voice called out, still thick with sleep. "Is it time for my party?" Sarah and I looked at each other, the weight of what was happening settling over us like a heavy blanket. How do you explain to a 7-year-old that his world is about to change forever? On his birthday, no less. "We'll be right there, buddy," I called out, my voice cracking. I looked back at Sarah, desperate. "Please, can we at least get through today, for him?" She nodded, but I could see her mind was already elsewhere, already planning her exit from the life we'd built together. As I walked upstairs to wish my son a happy birthday, I had no idea that this was just the beginning. I had no idea that Sarah had been planning this for months, or that she'd already taken steps to ensure she got everything she wanted. And I certainly had no idea that the security cameras I'd installed last month, the ones meant to keep our family safe, would end up being the key to exposing the truth about who my wife really was. But I'm getting ahead of myself. First, I had to survive the longest day of my life. The birthday party was a masterpiece of pretense. If acting were a sport, Sarah would have won an Olympic gold medal that afternoon. By 11 a.m., our backyard was transformed. The Batman decorations were up, the bounce house was inflated, and 12 of Tommy's friends from school were running around our half-acre lot in Plano, their laughter echoing off the fence. Sarah moved through the crowd like the perfect hostess. She'd always been, refilling juice boxes, taking photos, and making sure every parent felt welcome. To anyone watching, we looked like the ideal American family. Sarah wore a bright yellow sundress that complemented her tan, the result of countless hours at the country club pool. Her smile was radiant as she helped Tommy blow out his candles, and she laughed at all the right moments when he opened his presents. But I knew better. I could see the performance for what it was. "David, honey, could you help me bring out more ice from the garage?" she asked sweetly, that same smile plastered on her face. I followed her into the cool darkness of our 3-car garage, where she immediately dropped the act. Her face went cold, all traces of joy evaporating. "We need to talk about logistics," she said, her voice all business. "I've already spoken to my attorney. The moving truck comes Monday morning." Moving truck? I felt like I was drowning. "Sarah, you can't be serious. We just told the kids." I stopped myself. We hadn't told Tommy anything yet. How could we? "I'm taking Tommy to my mother's in Austin for a few days. When we come back, I'll be moving into the apartment I've already rented in uptown Dallas." She said it like she was discussing grocery lists. "You'll have visitation rights, of course." Visitation rights. The words came out louder than I intended. "Sarah, he's my son too. You can't just—" "Daddy!" Tommy's voice cut through our argument. He appeared in the doorway, his Batman cape trailing behind him. "Come see what Jake gave me. It's a real walkie-talkie." I looked at Sarah, then at my son's excited face. "Coming, buddy." The rest of the party passed in a blur. I watched Sarah hug the other parents goodbye, promising play dates and summer barbecues she'd never attend. I watched her tuck Tommy into bed that night, reading him his favorite story about dinosaurs, kissing his forehead like she'd done 1,000 times before. But it was all a lie. After Tommy fell asleep, Sarah and I sat in our living room, a space we'd decorated together, filled with photos of family vacations and milestones. The silence was deafening. "How long?" I finally asked. "How long what?" "How long have you been planning this?" She looked at me for a long moment, as if deciding whether to tell the truth. 3 months. 3 months. While I'd been working overtime to save for Tommy's college fund, she'd been planning to leave. While I'd been looking at vacation rentals for our anniversary, she'd been apartment hunting. While I'd been living in our marriage, she'd already left it. "There's something else," she said, not meeting my eyes. "The joint accounts. I've had to make some transfers for the security deposit on the apartment, moving expenses, that sort of thing." A chill ran down my spine. "What kind of transfers?" "Just enough to get settled. You'll still have access to your paycheck account." I pulled out my phone and opened our banking app. The number I saw made my blood run cold. Our savings account, the one with $47,000 we'd been building for years, showed a balance of $127. "Sarah, what did you do?" "I told you. Moving expenses, legal fees. I'm starting over, David. I need resources. You took everything, our emergency fund, Tommy's college savings." My lawyer said I was entitled to half of everything anyway. I just took it early. I stared at her. This woman I'd loved for 10 years, mother of my child, and realized I didn't know her at all. This is theft, Sarah. You can't just empty our accounts. Try to prove it. She stood up, smoothing down her dress. I'm going to bed. I suggest you call your own lawyer tomorrow. As she walked upstairs, I sat alone in the living room, surrounded by the remnants of Tommy's birthday party. Wrapping paper was scattered across the coffee table, and I could still smell the lingering sweetness of birthday cake in the air. That's when I remembered the security cameras. I'd installed them 6 weeks ago after a rash of break-ins in our neighborhood. 4 cameras total, 1 at the front door, 1 in the garage, 1 covering the backyard, and 1 in the main living area. Sarah had complained about them at first, saying they made her feel like she was being watched in her own home. Now I understood why. I grabbed my laptop and logged into the security system. If Sarah had been planning this for 3 months, and if she'd been moving money around, maybe the cameras had caught something. Maybe they'd caught everything. As I scrolled through weeks of footage, my heart pounded. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I knew I'd recognize it when I saw it. And I was right. The truth unfolded in high-definition video, time-stamped and undeniable. It started with a simple search through the footage from 3 weeks ago. I was looking for anything unusual, people coming to the house while I was at work, strange cars in the driveway, anything that might explain Sarah's sudden desire to leave. What I found was much worse. The first video was from a Tuesday afternoon. I was at the office, wrapping up a presentation for a client meeting. The timestamp showed 2:47 p.m. Sarah was in our living room on the phone with someone. The camera had audio, but I had to turn up the volume to catch what she was saying. Yes, I understand the timeline. The money will be transferred by Friday. She was pacing, something she only did when she was nervous. David doesn't check the accounts that often. He trusts me with the finances. My stomach dropped. She was talking about our money, our savings, the college fund I'd been contributing to since Tommy was born. But it got worse. I fast-forwarded through the footage, looking for more phone calls. There were dozens of them, all during the hours when I was at work. Sarah on the phone, Sarah on her laptop, Sarah meeting with people I didn't recognize. Then I found the video that changed everything. It was from 2 weeks ago, a Wednesday morning. Sarah was in the kitchen, but she wasn't alone. A man was with her, tall, dark hair, wearing an expensive-looking suit. I'd never seen him before in my life. They were sitting close together at our kitchen island, the same spot where Sarah had handed me the divorce papers. Too close. The man's hand was on her back, and she was leaning into him like they were intimate. My hands were shaking as I turned up the volume. "Told you, baby, everything's going according to plan," Sarah was saying. "The accounts are already set up. By next week I'll have access to everything. And David doesn't suspect anything?" The man's voice was smooth, confident. He sounded like he did this kind of thing for a living. "David's clueless. He thinks I'm just going through a phase or something. He has no idea I've been planning this for months." They kissed. Right there in my kitchen, on the stools I'd assembled myself. They kissed like lovers. I had to pause the video. The room was spinning, and I thought I might throw up. Sarah hadn't just been planning to leave me. She'd been cheating on me. For how long? Who was this man? I forced myself to keep watching. "The lawyer says the divorce should be straightforward," Sarah continued. "I'll get the house, half the assets, and primary custody of Tommy. David makes good money, so the child support payments will be substantial. What about the security cameras?" the man asked. My blood ran cold. They knew about the cameras. "I'll handle them," Sarah said. "David installed them, but I know the password." I can delete anything incriminating before he thinks to check. You're brilliant, baby. The man pulled her closer. Once this is all over, we can start our life together. Maybe take a trip to Europe like we talked about. With David's money, Sarah laughed. It was a sound I'd never heard from her before. Cold, calculating, cruel. I watched them plan my destruction over coffee in my own kitchen. I watched them decide how to take everything I'd worked for, how to limit my time with my son, how to frame me as the villain in the story of our marriage. But they made one crucial mistake. Sarah might have known the password to delete footage, but she didn't know that the system automatically backed up everything to the cloud. Every conversation, every kiss, every moment of their betrayal was saved on servers she couldn't access. I spent the next 3 hours going through footage. I found evidence of money transfers, Sarah on her laptop, moving funds from our joint accounts to accounts I'd never seen before. I found evidence of their affair, dozens of intimate moments captured when they thought no one was watching. I found evidence of premeditation, conversations about timing the divorce to maximize her financial gain. Most damning of all, I found the conversation from yesterday morning, just hours before she served me the papers. "Are you sure you want to do this on Tommy's birthday?" the man asked. He was in my living room drinking coffee from my favorite mug. "It's perfect timing," Sarah replied. "David will be emotional, off balance. He'll be more likely to sign quickly and quietly to avoid ruining Tommy's day. And if he doesn't, then I'll make sure everyone knows he's the one who ruined our son's birthday by refusing to cooperate. I'll be the victim, trying to handle things maturely while he throws a tantrum." They had choreographed every moment of yesterday, the timing, the location, even her responses to my questions. It was all planned to manipulate me into compliance. As I sat in my living room at 3 a.m., surrounded by the evidence of my wife's betrayal, I realized something important. I wasn't the victim of a sudden decision or a moment of weakness. I was the mark in a long con, and Sarah was the professional. But now I had proof. Every conversation, every transfer, every moment of their scheme was documented in crystal clear video. The question was, what was I going to do with it? I looked at the divorce papers still sitting on the coffee table, and for the first time in 24 hours, I smiled. Sarah thought she was so smart, but she'd made one fatal error. She'd underestimated me. The law offices of Henderson, Martinez, and associates occupied the entire 15th floor of a glass tower in downtown Dallas. The morning sun reflected off the building's surface as I sat in the reception area, a thick manila folder in my lap containing printed screenshots, USB drives, and a detailed timeline I'd spent 3 sleepless nights preparing. "Mr. Thompson, Mr. Martinez will see you now." James Martinez was exactly what I'd hoped for. A veteran divorce attorney with a reputation for protecting fathers' rights and a particular hatred for financial fraud. His office walls were covered with law, degrees, professional awards, and photos of him with various Dallas political figures. I have to tell you, Mr. Thompson, in 30 years of practice, I've rarely seen a case this clear-cut. He was reviewing the evidence I'd provided, occasionally shaking his head. "Your wife made several critical errors. Such as? Well, first, she assumed you wouldn't check the security footage. Second, she didn't realize that transferring money from joint accounts without the other spouse's knowledge, especially this amount, constitutes financial fraud. Third, she documented her intent to deceive you, which makes this premeditated." He pointed to one of the transcripts. "This conversation here, where she discusses timing the divorce to maximize emotional manipulation, that's going to be very compelling to a judge. What about Tommy? She's planning to take him to Austin." "Not anymore, she's not." Martinez leaned back in his chair. "Based on this evidence, we're going to file for an emergency restraining order preventing her from taking your son out of the Dallas County area. We're also going to freeze all accounts and request an immediate hearing." How long will this take? Emergency hearing can be scheduled for tomorrow morning. The beauty of having this much evidence is that we don't need time to build a case. We already have one. That afternoon, I picked up Tommy from school as usual. He chatted excitedly about his birthday party, completely unaware that his world was about to change. Sarah was waiting in the kitchen when we got home, already dressed for what I now realize was probably a date with her boyfriend. "I'm going out for a few hours," she announced. "Tommy's homework is done and there's leftover pizza in the fridge." "Actually, Sarah, we need to talk." I kept my voice calm, measured. "I've been thinking about the divorce papers." Her face lit up with what looked like relief. "Oh, good. I knew you'd come around. Did you sign them?" "I did better than that. I hired a lawyer." The smile faded from her face. "David, that's not necessary. We can handle this amicably." "Like you handled our bank accounts amicably?" She had the grace to look uncomfortable. "I told you that was just for moving expenses." $47,000 in moving expenses? That's interesting because my lawyer thinks it looks more like theft. "Don't be dramatic, David. Half of that money was mine anyway." "Sure, but taking it without telling me while planning to serve me divorce papers, that's fraud, Sarah. Premeditated fraud." I could see her calculating, trying to figure out how much I knew. "You're being paranoid." "Am I?" I pulled out my phone and showed her a screenshot from the security footage, her and her boyfriend in our kitchen. "Who's this, Sarah?" The color drained from her face. "David, I can explain. His name is Marcus Webb. He's a real estate developer. You've been seeing him for 4 months and you've been planning this divorce together." I showed her another screenshot. "You've been using our kitchen as your private meeting room, discussing how to steal my money and take my son. Those cameras are illegal. You can't record me without permission." "Actually, I can. This is my house too, and Texas is a one-party consent state. Everything you've done and said is perfectly admissible in court." Sarah sank into one of the kitchen stools, the same one where she'd planned my destruction. "What do you want, David?" "I want my money back. I want joint custody of Tommy. And I want you to understand that your little scheme is over." "You can't prove anything." I pulled out my laptop and showed her the video of her and Marcus discussing the divorce strategy. Her own voice filled the kitchen. "David's clueless. He thinks I'm just going through a phase or something. He has no idea I've been planning this for months." She watched in silence as I played clip after clip. Evidence of her affair, her financial crimes, her plans to manipulate me. When the video ended, she was crying. "I never meant for it to go this far," she whispered. "Yes, you did. You planned every detail. You decided to serve me divorce papers on Tommy's birthday because you thought it would give you an advantage. You stole our life savings because you thought I'd never find out. What happens now? Now, tomorrow morning we're going to court. My lawyer is filing for an emergency hearing. You're going to return every penny you stole. You're going to accept joint custody, and you're going to be grateful that I'm not pressing criminal charges." The hearing the next morning was swift and devastating for Sarah. Judge Patricia Hernandez, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s, reviewed the evidence with obvious disgust. "Mrs. Thompson, in 20 years on the bench, I've rarely seen such a clear case of financial fraud and marital deception. You systematically planned to defraud your husband, steal marital assets, and manipulate your child's emotional well-being for personal gain." Sarah's attorney, a young man who looked like he wanted to be anywhere else, barely put up a defense. How could he? The evidence was overwhelming. "I'm ordering the immediate return of all transferred funds to the joint accounts. I'm granting Mr. Thompson temporary custody of the minor child with supervised visitation for Mrs. Thompson until a full custody evaluation can be completed. I'm also ordering Mrs. Thompson to surrender her passport and remain within Dallas County pending resolution of the divorce proceedings." As we left the courthouse, Sarah's carefully constructed plan lay in ruins. The money was back in our accounts, Tommy would be staying with me, and her boyfriend had already distanced himself from the scandal. "I'm sorry," she said as we reached the parking garage. "I'm so sorry, David." "I know you are, Sarah. You're sorry you got caught." 6 months later, the divorce was finalized. Sarah received a far smaller settlement than she'd planned, and I was awarded primary custody of Tommy. The security footage had not only exposed her scheme, but had also demonstrated her willingness to prioritize her own interests over our son's well-being. Tommy adapted better than I'd expected. Kids are resilient, and with stability and honesty, he began to thrive. Sarah moved to a small apartment in East Dallas and found work as a real estate agent. Our interactions were civil but minimal, limited to school events and custody exchanges. The security cameras are still there, but now they serve their original purpose, keeping my family safe. Sometimes I think about that night when I discovered the truth, how close I came to signing those papers and accepting Sarah's version of events. The cameras didn't just catch my wife's betrayal, they caught the truth. And sometimes, the truth is the only justice we can get. People often ask me if I regret installing those cameras, if I wish I'd never seen what Sarah was really doing. The answer is simple: I'd rather live with a painful truth than a comfortable lie. Because the truth, no matter how much it hurts, is what sets you free.